Bob, I'm staring full on. Oh, wait, I can change it. Okay. Welcome to our fifth Cosmic Vespers. Um, it's a time together in engaged contemplation, and so in that spirit, we invite you to hold this as sacred space as you would any circle. Um, I'll begin with just this recent phrase from Brian Swim. The way forward is the deepening of the human being. The way forward is the deepening of the human being. And before we begin in earnest, Marianne has an announcement to share.
Good evening and welcome and congratulations for giving yourself this time. This is Rich Time with Penny. And I want to share with you some other things that Creation Spirituality Communities offers, because this is one of many. So if you go to our new website, which is still being developed, but boy, it's a lot better than it was just a short time ago. And if this is what you find when you go to CS, here it is, cscommunities.org, and this beautiful infinity symbol shows up. But if you hit on the calendar, it shows you what's happening. And so for tonight, Cosmic Vespers, and the time is wrong. We're going to fix it. And tomorrow, Kaleo and Elise are offering not Cosmic Vespers. They're actually offering Qigong and Haiku. And that's been so well received, and he will turn no one around. So for any donation, you will be able to enroll. It started last week and it continues next week. And this is their second short session. We're going to offer another elective the same way in January. But then if you go to, because you've already missed some really juicy things that are happening, if you go over here and hit the arrow, you'll hit December. The first Sunday of every month, we have First Sundays Interfaith Worship Experience. The first Thursday, Global Kinship.
All right, I'm going under.
Hello?
There's 26 people here, so.
All right. You're letting people in. Should I stop?
No, I don't know who that was, but I'm going to mute them.
Okay. I'm sorry, Bob. I thought it was you. I was like, oops. Don't go under, Bob. Okay. My point is just go to our calendar. There's a lot there, and we do a lot, and we do it all for you. And these are communities, and we want you to join us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Penny. There you are.
You're muted.
You're muted, Penny.
Tech Talk, Bob.
Yo. Brief as always, but in case we've got somebody that has not been with us before, we simply ask you to keep yourself muted unless we have a time for questions. And if you haven't muted yourself, you may see me mute you. If you do have a question or want to raise your hand, I invite you to look at your reactions button on your Zoom toolbar, and or react, I guess they've renamed it, and the words "raise hand" will bump you to the top of the list, and we'll know that you'd like to be called on. I think that's it. All for me.
Marianne?
Yeah. Okay, I have two little pieces for you. And so we are now beginning our Vespers. And I am inviting you to put your feet on the floor and get comfortable. If that means scrunching up your shoulders, stretching a little bit, and maybe closing your eyes or using a soft gaze, whatever you're comfortable with. This first reading comes from Valerie Carr. And if you haven't encountered her, I just encourage you to. I recently sat in her presence during her Revolutionary Love tour. She has rich wisdom for us. In her new book, My goodness, I don't even remember the name of the book, but I'm telling you, Sage Warrior. She says, now close your eyes and just take it in because we need this. The world has ended many times before, and it has been rebirthed many times before. The original meaning of the word apocalypse, apokalypsis in Greek, is lifting the veil. This era is revealing the sweet labor we are called to participate in to birth a new world. And so my name for this era is the Great Transition, the convulsive birthing labor that precedes the world that is wanting to be born. Not the darkness of the tomb, the darkness of the womb. This is an invitation to embrace rebirth. For we will all become ancestors one day if we show up with our whole hearts. What future generations will inherit from this time will not be our trauma, but our courage, born of joy. In the Sikh tradition, it's called Chardikala, ever rising spirits, even in darkness, ever rising joy. Take a breath in, let that sink in. Oh, and breathe out, thank you. And breathe in, welcome. And thank you. And there's a short little prayer from John Philip Newell. I've amended it slightly. Out of the silence at the beginning of time, the word of life was spoken. Out of the world's primeval darkness, the universe was flooded with light. In the quiet of this place, in the dark of the night, I wait and watch. In the stillness of my soul, and from its fathomless depths, the senses of my heart are awake. For fresh soundings of life, for new showings of light, I search in the silence of my spirit. And breathe in, welcome. And breathe out, thank you. And one more time. Oh, and I thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Beautiful. So tonight had an original intent, and then it had a secondary intent. So we're going to honor our original intent by sharing a brief poem that speaks to something going on over at Deep Time Network called autocosmology. It's taking what Brian Swim did in his book Cosmogenesis, inviting us all to do the same, to see our lives as having these moments of grace, if you will, that couldn't have been planned, but they changed our lives profoundly. And this poem came across my desk, and I thought, wow, what a great way to spend a session. However, after we do a short dalliance here, we'll move into regeneration as a hardwiring state in the human being. And that's for the Americans gathered here. Many of us who are really seeking to deepen and to understand our place right now. So the original poem is from Yumi Sakugawa. And we'll have a comment from Shelley Gilchrist when this is over. Most of the time, the universe speaks to us very quietly, in pockets of silence, in coincidences, in nature, in forgotten memories, in the shape of clouds, in moments of solitude, in small tugs at our hearts. Shelley?
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you tonight. I need to be here tonight, and I'm thankful that we're together. I had an experience shortly after our last meeting together, and I'm sure many of you have experienced something like it, but I hadn't, so I wrote it down, and I asked Penny if I could share a little of it. It's not very long. As a preface, Minnesota, and lots of flora and fauna, lots of ways to be in nature without having to go very far. But some of it can become very routine, and you may hear dogs barking because I have 7. And this is just something that caught me on an autumn afternoon, maybe 3 weeks ago. Well, and ready for the Waitron to stop by with goodies. The flora and the fauna are ready, even if hiding, and the ritual begins. It is the golden hour on a sunny Minnesota afternoon. Leaves of cottonwood, box elder, walnut, red oak, white oak, aspen, and birch tumble and smell so earthy and so familiar as they crunch under their brilliance against the blue sky is a splash of delight, a palette of awe. And I thank you, universe. I will treasure this moment. As I patter down the small hill, the bucket of corn, oats, blackberries, and apples feels surprisingly light. I swing it and I lose a little on the path, but the turkeys will appreciate that. By the pond, and they barely hide from me now. Their eyes are on the bucket. Game on. Fall is lonesome and fabulous for me, but it feels a little different this year. This year I have stood by the buds, the full leafing, and then they're leaving with more awe than sadness. I have embraced the metaphor of faith mostly. So that my efforts on that day earned my meditation spot. Empty bucket in hand, I head to the old swing and I rock. But I soon stop because the squeak is distracting. And I think I have to listen. A sudden gust, yellow, red, and orange swirl around me. Should I run to the house? There are no clouds. Her maple tree. She is swooping, leaning, dancing. And I'm drawn to her with abandon. I want to be near. She bends low and invites me to take hold of her branches. Don't clutch, she sings. Hold lightly. Wait. Now. The next bold autumn gust surprises me. I'm lifted to my tiptoes. I feel the lift of arms. I am the sway. Oh, let's do it again. Fly with me. We've danced many times since, always special and surprising. But that first moment of being one is unlike any other. It was breathless wonder.
Thank you, Shelley. It's just beautiful. Before we move on, did anyone have something, a memory or a recent opportunity for the universe to speak to you that you'd be interested in sharing before we get into regeneration? This is just the universe speaking in unbidden ways to make the day different, like Shelley dancing with her red oak. Okay. Just beautiful. Thank you.
I could say something.
Oh, please.
Okay. Okay. I attended a webinar. It's been a couple of weeks now, but the topic was synchronicity. And it was through the Medical and Scientific Network in London. And I don't recall who the speaker was, but he was talking about his it just flipped over onto all the people. Anyway, he was talking about his experience with a grasshopper. And he went on at length talking about this grasshopper, and I just needed to shift my position. I went outside for a moment to get the newspaper, and lo and behold, on the wall, I have a little alcove right outside my door, right next to the excuse me, right next to the door. I'm sorry. Was a grasshopper on the wall. I'd never seen a grasshopper around my house, but that grasshopper was right there, about a yard from me, motionless. And I'm still flabbergasted today. And it stayed there for quite a while. The man stopped his talk, and I went out, and he was still there, hadn't moved. But then eventually he did. But anyway, the synchronicity is just really amazing, and I'd like to know what it meant, but I don't know. If anyone knows, please tell me. But it was an amazing coincidence.
Grasshopper medicine is really, really good medicine. So, hi, I'm Anna. I love synchronicities from the universe and coincidences that are God incidences. So, grasshopper means take a leap of faith.
Ah,
This always means a leap of faith. So if you just Google grasshopper spirit medicine,
really?
then yeah, that's no coincidence. I mean, that's amazing. I love when those things happen.
I do
You might
too.
have you might have manifested it because you were watching the webinar.
I
Either
think
way,
I think he read my mind.
yeah, I've come
It's all
across a few
universe.
grasshoppers this year too, and yeah, so take a leap of faith is the main message from grasshopper.
That's
But yeah,
great. Thank
Google it and they'll tell you more.
thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for telling me about that.
Lovely. Thanks. Anyone else? All right. So the way forward is the deepening of the human being. I'm taking part in 2 classes right now, one offered by Brian Swim and the other by Fritjof Capra. And the convergence is quite wonderful because of late I've been realizing that a lot of teaching comes either from the universe story or from Gaia. And I'm starting to get very curious about this midway point, the bridge. And Brian offered some wisdom on this front last night. The universe aims in building rocky planets. The universe birthed a whole spectrum of rocky planets And then it hands over to the creativity of that planet to create what it will. Now, if some of you that have been here before remember, part of my curiosity is somewhat like Spinoza's and Einstein's, and it is, what can we learn from those patterns to advise us and counsel us as we enter into this new era? Some call the Ecozoic, some call the Anthropocene, some call the Symbiocene, and I'm sure there are other names. But we are in the dying off of one era and the very early stages of another one. And so what I concluded, and I think I've since revised, is the word regeneration is dedicated to life. But I consulted with AI, and here's what they had to say with the universe as regenerative. The universe can be seen as inherently regenerative in the way it constantly transforms energy and matter, perpetually giving rise to new forms and systems. Throughout its vast scale, the universe is a tapestry of cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, a continuous unfolding that sustains existence and fosters change. On a cosmic level, stars are born, mature, and die in spectacular supernova explosions, dispersing elements that become building blocks of new stars, planets, and even life itself. This stellar cycle of creation and destruction illustrates a regenerative process. In a broader sense, quantum physics and thermodynamics also show us that energy is not lost, but rather transformed, changing forms while maintaining its presence in the universe. Even the vast stretches of space, while appearing empty, are permeated by fields and particles that interact and evolve, allowing the universe to sustain its dynamic structure over time. Fritjof, and I commend his course, the Capra course, to you. It's called Systems of Life. And he recently came up with 4 principles of life. And if you go to his website, there it is, fritjofcapra.net. And I could easily say of the universe that it organizes itself. And I could say that it's inherently creative and it's inherently intelligent in the sense of cognition, which means it understands what it's doing on a certain level. But in the regenerative part, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt that there's something very special about life and regeneration. It's a little different than the universe. It's a little more Gaia directed. And here's what it says, and why this is so important to us right now is that many of us need to understand and begin to interact with our hardwiring of regeneration. Life is inherently regenerative. At the heart of life lies a remarkable capacity for renewal. Living systems continuously regenerate themselves by transforming or replacing their parts, thereby adapting structurally while maintaining their intricate patterns of organization. This balance between stability and change is a defining characteristic of life. In nature, this regeneration is clearly visible. From the rhythmic renewal of seasons to new growth each spring. But modern systems thinking reveals that regeneration extends far beyond the visible. It operates at every level of life, from whole ecosystems down to the molecular networks within cells. Regeneration is the essential rhythm of life itself. When it ceases, so too does life. Philosophically, we might even say that regeneration is not only the essence, but perhaps the purpose of life. This ongoing cycle of transformation requires a continuous flow of energy and matter through each living system. A reminder that we are all sustained by metabolic processes that connect us to Earth's larger rhythms of air, water, and nourishment. So for many of us, this past week in the United States has been profoundly difficult. And we know we're only at the beginning of it. And part of what became extremely painful to me this time was that I realized it was the fourth time I was gut punched by an presidential election. First time was with Reagan, the second time was with W, and the third and fourth time were the president-elect. And each time, with less time each time, because the first gut punch is always the toughest, I've learned to regenerate. And it's time once again to pull out those tools. So, some of the work that's being done so profoundly right now is in the area of trauma. And it leads to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is this huge nerve living inside of us that connects the brain with vital organs and influences our parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest, relaxation, and recovery. When we activate and tone this vagus nerve, we help shift the body into a more relaxed and balanced state, which builds resilience over time. So to this purpose, I thought we could do a short couple-minute exercise from Tai Chi that is said to be helpful for the vagus nerve specifically. And are we all muted, Bob?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I'm going to do something that is also very, very good for the vagus nerve, but it does require each of us to make our own sounds, and Zoom doesn't like a chorus. And that is humming. Now, you don't have to do it with the movement. You can just sit in your chair and hum while we're doing the movement for those of us who are interested. And it's the cloud hands. So you begin by just having your feet shoulder width apart, soft knees, soft bent knees, and then your hands just go back and forth as you sway. Now the invitation is, do you want to hum? Because then you are doubling down on help for your vagus nerve. Mhm. 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 And when you feel ready, go back to your seat. And just know that you can look up more on the vagus nerve and how to keep it nurtured as things fray in our outer worlds. We can be still and calm in the eye of the hurricane, and sometimes we can modify the hurricane through our calmness. Just a note, Sister Jose Habde used to teach at Matt's school, and way before I ever heard of the vagus nerve, she told a story about her family, and they were Native Americans who, if one of the kids woke up grumpy, her father would say, "Go out and hum until you feel better." So, this humming is a huge tool and one well worth our time in these times of rapid change. Now, it is a delight to have JD Stillwater with us tonight, and he's going to add a few words before we go into our circle.
Thank you, Penny. I'm really glad to be here, and it's my loss that I haven't been here every time. There's so much healing here. Penny mentioned this transition that we're in to some kind of a new era, almost like a rebirth, a transformative transition. And just in the last few days, Maria Popova of the Marginalian wrote a piece that likens it to a phase transition. In science, a phase transition is when a substance goes from solid to liquid, or from liquid to gas, or the other way around. And I love that as a metaphor for what's happening. It doesn't actually change much, but it provides a metaphor and a context that's really helpful to me in feeling like I have some understanding, something to hold on to as as we go through this. You know, the thing about phase transitions is that, especially as you go from solid to liquid or from liquid to gas, it takes heat. There has to be an input of heat, and it takes a huge amount of heat to convert a body of liquid to gas, or from, if you take water as an example, it takes a lot more heat to take an ice cube from 32 degrees Fahrenheit and turn it into water at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And the whole time you're adding heat, the temperature doesn't change. And the same thing happens as you boil water. The temperature of water, when you put it in a kettle or on the stove, the temperature goes up and up and up until it hits the boiling temperature. And then it stays at that temperature as a lot of heat is added. And while that heat is being added, the molecules at the surface of the water, they're always vibrating. Molecules are always moving, but in an ice cube, they're just moving in place. They're kind of vibrating. In water, they can slide over one another. And this is true of all liquids, not just water. But at the boiling temperature, they start moving so quickly that some of them can actually escape the surface and become steam. So if what we're in the middle of politically and environmentally is a kind of phase transition, I have no idea what the new phase will be like. But I observe that a lot of heat is being added, a lot of social and cultural heat, excitement, movement, energy is being added to everyone, everywhere. And as a phase transition happens from solid to liquid or from liquid to gas, there's a lot more chaos. After the transition, the new state of this group of beings or molecules has a lot more freedom and a lot more chaos. And during that transition, some molecules, if we stick with the metaphor, are still below the surface, still sliding over each other, but really closer together than they want to be, given how much energy they have. And the ones that have escaped the surface and become a gas, become steam, are in a whole new place completely. It's a completely different state of matter. And I think it's obvious, right? Water and steam are very, very different. But those of us who are still sort of at the surface can't imagine. It's very hard for me personally to imagine what the new phase might look like, might be like. But I hold out some hope that in some way it could be better. So I think a lot of us after last Tuesday feel like dark times are coming, and I have nothing to offer to soften that. I think dark times are coming, but I think the years ahead of us, the months and years ahead of us, are also very much full of new energy. That doesn't necessarily mean good energy or energy that's well directed, but it's energy that speeds up the collisions and the sliding over of the particles that make up our society. And if we are going to transition to a new phase, especially a better phase with more freedom and more possibility, even if it also involves some additional measure of chaos, we need that energy to make the leap. The mothers among us know that it takes a lot of energy to effect the transition of a birth. So I just want to echo the metaphors that Penny offered of a rebirth, a transformation of sorts, and for me personally, a phase transition from the very hard science world of chemistry is also a helpful metaphor. Am I out of time? I'm a poll worker, and so I went into last Tuesday to my local precinct with a lot of anxiety about how well my neighbors would behave when they came to vote. And the day went beautifully. I mean, it was a 15-hour day. A poll worker, it's a long, long, hard day. But I came home tired in my precinct. The election went the way I hoped it would in just my one little precinct. So I went to bed tired, but feeling good about the work I'd done. And Wednesday morning, I awoke to news that for me personally was very disappointing. And that same morning, the energy that I was just talking about, the energy of a phase transition, pushed me to write. I had to write. And so I want to just pull a little bit out of the blog post that I posted on Wednesday morning. I wrote, I believe that the arc of the moral universe is long, and I still believe that it bends towards justice. It's far too soon to comfort ourselves with proverbial silver linings, but the darkness of this morning begs for some glimmer, some sliver of lightness concealed in the gloom. Pendulums swing. This too shall pass. In the meantime, we will harbor one another. We will set aside the word mine. We will embrace the always intimate presence of our vulnerability. And we will open our doors to the even more vulnerable among us. Just as this day's dark clouds conceal slivers of light, we will conceal the innocent from the rampaging forces of hate. If necessary, we will construct railroads underground, in car trunks and shipping containers, with floorboards and pronouns and courage. And we will do this because we have always done this. The political world is powerful and far-reaching, but Mother Nature holds the ultimate line item veto. The laws of physics are not subject to popular vote, and they are self-enforcing. I would have preferred a great turning, a turning from brinkmanship to kinship, from ambition to compassion, from bitterness to kindness. But yesterday, this nation chose a different kind of turning, and the horizon is dark and foreboding. Let us find slivers of silver light among the clouds in a seventh generation view of history, in our own resilience and determination, in wilderness, in the essential goodness of our humanity, and in one another. I think gatherings like this one are exactly what's needed in this time, so that we can find the essential goodness of our humanity in one another. Thank you, Penny, for letting me butt in at the last minute. And I'm really glad to be here, and I'm glad there's a here to be.
Thank you, JD. Thank you, JD. That was extraordinary. Is there anything that wants to be shared right now on any aspect of what you've heard? Okay. All right. Well, now our numbers are of a size that makes this next part challenging. And I think it's going to be move at the pace of guidance, whether you speak up or perhaps put something in the chat. But what is true now and will forever be true as it was previously always true is this idea of we are energy flowing inside energy flowing. And that implies movement. And we may feel stuck at points, but that is an illusion. It's an illusion of our thought. And it might be time to check in with the vagus nerve when that feeling pops up. So, Matt Fox has created the 4 paths, which many of you know. Joanna Macy has come up with a mini spiral, which is a variation on the 4 paths, just with different words, essentially. And I thought, because of our time this particular month, we might attempt a spiral or walking the 4 paths as a group. And again, because of our numbers, we can't do it as intimately as I would like, but we'll do it the best we can. And I invite you again to move at the pace of guidance, whether you write something in chat or whether you are moved to speak. There'll be time for some speaking, but not a lot of it. And there will be more time for chat reading out loud. So with that, The four paths are the via positiva, which is what you love without a why. Joanna's word is, what are you grateful for? The via negativa is that which causes pain and suffering. And Joanna's words for that is honoring our pain. Then comes the via creativa, which is that inherent impulse in the universe and in all of us to see things with new eyes, which is Joanna's phrase for it. And lastly is the via transformativa, or the going forth. So in the spirit of engaged contemplation, which is what we hope Cosmic Vespers is to you, I'm going to invite, let's say, 3 or 4 people to express verbally, if they're moved, what they're feeling, what they love without a why, or what they're grateful for right now. And should you have something that you'd rather just write, please write it in the chat, and we'll read that aloud at the end of the via positiva or the gratitude path. But again, this idea is that we are energy flowing. This taps into this idea that we are flowing always. So would anyone care to speak up and raise your hand, if you will, in the reactions? And we'll start with the via positiva or gratitude. And in Joanna's studies of doing her mini spiral, people have found benefit from this 6 months later, being in community and just sharing this. I tell you this because many of us have communities where we might want to do this very thing with our friends. And Joanna Macy has a very pregnant, exploding website, workthatreconnects.org, so that if you wanted to do more with it, there's lots of resources for that. So again, I'll be silent, and then anyone who cares to speak up with gratitude about anything in your life right now, or what you love without a why, please share. Sylvia writes, unconditional love that is with me. I might say my new cat that is over the 3-month part, where she's adapting to 2 dogs that she's never been around before. And like clockwork, around 3 months, she's gotten braver and stronger, and is coming along nicely. I am grateful for the community that holds me during this dark time. I'm
The
grateful.
full moon tonight. The full moon tonight. It brings up a gratitude and an awe that you can't explain.
I'm grateful that we other cars that stopped were able to help a bunny that was crossing 6 lanes in 5 o'clock traffic in LA. Wow. Right. So let's move into what is called honoring our pain, or the via negativa. Oh, we have one more. Bunny made it. And from down under, I am grateful for the technology that enables me to connect in spirit with you in the Northern Hemisphere. Yay, Margie. And JD, grateful for the thousands of communities like this, which reminds me of, and this is, I'm only learning science as an aging person who struggled with science as a child, that complexity theory came along in the 30s, and what it's suggesting is that we build these islands of coherence, especially now. Meg Wheatley calls them islands of sanity, another teacher for our times. Let's see. For the quality of life experienced in my 80 years, for which I have been fortunate to have. It's been a good life. Beautiful, beautiful. So, breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And in words, either spoken or written, what causes you pain or suffering now?
Inequities that I can't fix. Inequities of food and means for a healthy life are so many places, and I can't fix them all. I don't know. We seem to think we can go on with them being that way, and it's caused me great pain.
In the chat, the unknown is always so scary. The curveball we cannot anticipate. Katie writes, fear for our planet, fear for the unleashing of permitted racism. And Catherine, fear for the future possibilities. Barbara, the lack of safety to have honest dialogues. The vulnerability of Earth as CO COP29 ignores and refuses to relate to her with fierce commitment. Contemplating the consequences of drill, baby, drill on the teetering tipping points that hover like guillotines above all our grandchildren. Despair in the voices of my nieces. The news that several Afghan refugee families are in danger of eviction from sponsored housing. How could we send them to the streets? Self-doubt that sometimes lassos my confidence that I have something to offer. The suffering of Palestinians who are simply trying to live and love and experience the beauty of life that is being denied them. Condone genocide that my tax dollar supports. I would add the cabinet appointments. Friends of friends in New York who are asking if they can come live in my basement. Perhaps the metta prayer is helpful here. The Buddhist prayer that just says, may all beings know peace. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be free. And I've heard it described in one way that we can't know, and we certainly can't achieve that in our lifetime, but in that speaking of these wishes, it opens up our heart to be more free to do what is ours to do. Bob, would you like to share?
Thanks, Penny. Quite coincidentally this week, maybe not, given what we're all feeling after last Tuesday, I was gifted the words of a woman who I've not been familiar with. Maybe that's my own loss. I believe her name would be pronounced Brene Brown. She describes herself as a researcher, storyteller, and currently enraged Texan who's spent the last 2 decades studying courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy. She's at the University of Houston. She writes, despair is a claustrophobic feeling. It's the emotion that says nothing will ever change. It's different than anger or sadness or grief. Despair is twinged with hopelessness. People who subscribe to power over leadership often weaponize despair. They count on people giving up on themselves, their work, and each other. I get it. I'm looking at people I know with suspicion. I'm questioning the value of my work. I'm wondering if courage, kindness, and caring for each other simply don't matter anymore. I'm desperate for someone to blame because blame is an effective way to discharge pain, and it gives us a sense of counterfeit control. The research shows that hope is a powerful antidote to despair. What's interesting, however, is that hope is not an emotion, according to C.R. Snyder. Hope is a cognitive behavioral process. It's about having a goal, a pathway to achieve that goal, and a sense of agency, or I can do this. Right now, the thing that is helping the most is microdosing hope. I have no access to big hope right now. However, I'm asking myself how I can support the people around me, the people on my team, in my community. How can I make sure that in the maelstrom of my emotions, I stay committed to courage, kindness, and caring for others, regardless of the choices made by others? Doing the smallest next right thing is hard as the devil, but sometimes it's all we've got.
Thank you, Bob. Um, so this next phase, I think, will bundle the via creativa, or seeing with new eyes, and the via transformativa, and going forth. And it's a little hard to know what is ours to do at this moment. Maybe we're well into something that flows very much intentionally along the changes that lie ahead. But I invite the sharing of what's coming through right now in your life, knowing that in an island of coherence, we help each other heal. We help each other microdose hope. And perhaps what you're thinking will be of benefit to someone who's listening, and help them go forth. So has anything been brimming or bubbling, or even just a little internal nudge of late? I know we have a lot of activists who already are doing things, but is anything coming through that's new, and or feeling like whose time has come and you want to be doing?
I'm trying to listen, often with just my imagination, to people whose hearts were led in a different direction than mine, and also their leader. Knowing that holding fast to our hard lines against each other will only entrench and make it worse. So that I know my work is to be compassionate and open to what they're trying to say, what they thought that what they found good in this last election.
From Katie, my world is so full of creative opportunity. I am so grateful for that. Deborah writes, I've moved to a new community. I'm feeling an urge to advocate for a natural burial site. I'm getting older and would like the alternative for myself and others who might desire it. And Katie says, this is from her husband, Julian. For me, being more intentional about building islands of coherence, Anna writes, I refuse to allow the Roman Empire to bring me down. I will not live in fear. Be not afraid. We live love, not of this world. So much of this world is an illusion. I often think about just this time period and how I mean, life is never easy, but it has been easier than many other eras of living. And we have not developed the muscle that is in the face of adversity the way other generations might have. So I think I think about digging deeper and Brian's words, the deepening of humanity. How do we go deeper? And how do we link arms? Back in the 80s, when Reagan was elected, there was the word cocooning. And what that was, and it was almost like waking up to a nightmare. You know, I'd been in the alternative energy field, and Jimmy Carter was in office, and things seemed to be moving in a certain direction. And of course, Reagan got in and upended all that. But one of the things that happened was houses got bigger, cars got bigger. And the idea was you went into one of these huge houses and you cocooned. You were self to yourself and your family. And so that muscle of community isn't in us the way it might have been had it not been interrupted by the selling of what was for sale back under Reagan's era and several since. So it's Joanna Macy often says it is a privilege and an honor to be alive at this time. Anna writes, I am a death doula as one world is dying, and I am a birth doula as we birth a new earth. This is quite an interesting time to be alive on our planet. Pluto enters Aquarius on November 19th for the next 40 years. A whole new golden age is arriving. Jinx. And then Marianne, our ancestral memory of joining is within us. We were born for now. And that is so true. And it's about awakening that deep knowing and imagining our ancestors. That's another thing that this culture has cut off from us, is a sense of connectedness to those who came before, and they had to undergo so much adversity to get from here to there. Janice, contemplate, imagine living in a country where we all realize we have the same name, I, and we belong together as one family. Set 3 intentions every day to spread kindness. Keep a gratitude journal. plant bulbs for spring. Listen for what is mine to do outside of my 3-foot circle. Think of those who went before and persevered. Well, I think we'll begin to wind down our circle now. And know that that muscle is in us. For many of you, you're on the Cosmogenesis email. If you're not, please message Bob in the chat, and we'll put you on there. JD says, Julia Mallory, a local artist, says, an easier assignment isn't coming. Do your work. Right. So before we completely close this circle and Gail sings us out, are there any last minute thoughts that want sharing? Yeah, Anna.
Catherine.
Say something again.
Yeah.
Thank you. A long time ago, I was a student of Matt Fox, and this was probably in the late 80s, and I joined the creation spirituality movement, and I was a creation spirituality connector for my local area. And we would have meetings up in Los Angeles, and I would drive up, and they would be creation spirituality meetings for an hour and a half, just to acquaint people to what it was all about. And this was at a time when no one really knew what it was. You know, people didn't understand it. It wasn't being talked about in the churches. It was a foreign concept to pretty much everybody. So it was hard for us because we felt alone. And we were a very small minority at that time of people. But I could say through the decades, I've watched it grow, and now it's just it's taken off because of a variety of reasons that it's being discussed in the churches. It's a very big movement today. So, but anyway, back at that time, we felt really lonely. But every once in a while, there'd be an article in the media about Matt Fox being well, Thomas Berry wrote a thing about Matt Fox being the only academic who was presenting a class on creation spirituality in the country. And yeah, we'd see something that would really be exciting to us, and that it'd just help and move us along. But I just thought about what I've experienced recently. I mean, we're in a very large minority. We're practically a majority. The numbers, I think, are very small from what I'm hearing, less than 1%. So I mean, we have a lot of company, and I think we can keep our thoughts on the experiences that we've had in political life and appreciate the democracy that we've experienced and know its value and hold on to that thought and never let go, and know that it's going to be ours forever, and hopefully it will return to us, and I believe it will. It could just be another 4 years. But there was something in the news today that was like that, the little spark of hope that we would get. And I got this little spark of hope because the Senate majority leader was just voted on today by the Senate. And before that, though, Trump wanted to appoint that person. And then somebody else said, no, we want to do this. And they were struggling. And finally, the Senate voted on it, and they chose their own leader. So that's a spark of hope for me. So I think we're going to be seeing things like that. Yeah, really. No kidding. I think we're going to be seeing things like that as time goes on, but we can hold on to our values in the meanwhile as as what we're working toward for them to return. I hope that helps someone.
Yeah. Barbara writes, newness is on its way. Evolution is working, even if it's not always apparent. And Patty, it's only 2 years until the next House of Representatives is elected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're hardwired for regeneration. And I remind you just to do some probing one day at a time on the vagus nerve, because there will be times that are overwhelming coming. And if we can keep our personal island of coherence steady, which doesn't, okay, this is from Fritjof's course. Equilibrium in science in biology means death. When you're far from equilibrium, you're actually engaged very much in life. Is that not right, JD? So it's not that that we can be steady all the time, but engaged and centered will be very, very helpful. And we're hardwired to be able to do that. Anna writes, the work is vertical now. Go inward as much as possible. As within, so without. I'll write Fritjof's name. And he, interestingly enough, he knows Joanna quite well. Joanna Macy, he knows Matthew Fox, he knows Brian Swim, and he's done good work in integrating the sciences. Breathe in, breathe, and then push. Valerie Carr. Ceasefire now. May peace prevail. Thank you for being with us tonight. Gail is going to sing us off. And then when she's done, if you'd like to just share a hand gesture, let's go out in silence, holding to this notion that we are in engaged contemplation and that this is sacred time. Being in community is sacred. And that echoes Thomas Berry's notion as well, that if we can hold things as sacred, things will flow in our going forth. So, even as I cringe at some of the tasks I think might be useful to do, if I can see them as sacred, it's a whole different approach. Gail.
Okay. Okay. So don't. So this again. I'm sorry. I have a big black. There it goes. I have a big a rectangle in front of my face. So Bob. So I'm going to share and lead you in the only way you can on Zoom on two chants that I think make add into this our experience in our conversation today. How I would like to do it is have I will sing it actually 4 times, and at some point you keeping yourself on mute because it's a cacophony if you try to all sing together. But you could sing it. Maybe Bob, you could put it up in front so I can refer to it. So that optional counter tune, step by step. You could just sing that while I'm doing the rest if you'd like. Or if you're catching it, you'd like to sing along with me, that would be just wonderful. You could hum also. that might be what you would like to do. So it's an easy way to participate. It's just to do what we call a drill, just step by step, step by step. You could just sing that step by step, step by step, step by step, and round, carry me to holy ground. Center is calling, earth still revolving, something lost and something found. Step by step, and round, carry me to holy ground. Center is calling, earth still revolving, something lost and something found. Step by step, and round, carry me to holy ground. Center is calling, earth still revolving, something lost and something found. Step by step, and round, carry me to holy ground. Center is calling, earth still revolving, something lost and something found. Step by step, step by step, step by step. So we're thinking how we move with this song, this chant, and now a postmodern pagan chant, fur and feather, and life, again, same tune, life made whole, life made whole. You can repeat that to yourself if you don't want to try to catch the whole chant in just a few repetitions. Get that off my words. Fur and feather and scale and skin, different without but the same within. Many the body but one the soul, by all creatures is our life made whole. Fur and feather and scale and skin, different without but the same within. Many the body but one the soul, by all creatures is our life made whole. Fur and feather and scale and skin, different without but the same within. Many the body but one the soul, by all creatures is our life made whole. Fur and feather and scale and skin, different without but the same within. Many the body but one the soul, by all creatures is our life made whole. By all creatures is our life made whole. By all creatures is our life made whole.
And with that, we say goodnight. And I invite you to gesture with your hands in any way you'd like to say goodbye and honor this time and community that we share.